Can someone explain to me why the OLED or just the normal Steam Deck is as popular as it is and why people seem to love it so much? Because I kind of don't get it. Now, I get that, the integration of your digital library into something like a handheld is very palatable, and it's a way to game that is very organized and accessible and fun to do. And I understand that, and that the machine, the actual handheld is a very high quality. I get that, but what I don't understand is the value. So right now it's on a 5% off sale, right? And this is the American Amazon site, and it sells for 1,175 US dollars, which is a very large amount of money. Now, I do understand that it has a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD and it's a fast one. It has an OLED screen. It's a really good screen. I get that. I get that it has really good Wi-Fi. I get that it has LPDDR 5, and it's very quick RAM, right? It is only 16 gigs of RAM, and it is only a 4-core CPU. It doesn't have a ton of compute units on the GPU, on the APU, but I understand that it is new technology, right? Relatively speaking. And I mean, look at these reviews. It's well loved. People really like it. 4.6 out of 5 there. But it just, the value doesn't really make sense to me. I've already said this, but I understand that people like its form factor, and I understand that people like the idea of it, but the value isn't there, in my opinion. So what I want to do in this video is walk through what I think makes more sense to buy, for a similar price. And this isn't going to be a handheld. I just want to compare what the money can get you in terms of computing power. Now, I could do a video where we compare handhelds as well, but that's been done 1,000 times. This is more about just me trying to understand why people are so interested in this little machine. And it kind of applies to the coming Steam machine as well. I also don't really get that one. But let's take a look at it, right? Because this thing runs at 1280 by 800. It's just a little bit more than HD ready, really. So it doesn't even run at HD. We have some gaming tests open here, and we're playing old games, right? Like Call of Juarez Gunslinger is it's a game that I loved growing up, but it's a very old game. We used to LAN this back in the day in high school, and it was great. And I remember at the time thinking it had amazing graphics. It was really like intuitive to play and everything. But I mean, it's an old game, right? And you're playing it at 720p, and you can see from the video here it doesn't really look good. I'm sure on the OLED screen it looks nice, the colors look nice and everything, but the quality just isn't really there. And I mean, this is going to run fine because it's such an old game. But the thing with the Steam Deck is you're kind of playing on something like a 1650, in terms of horsepower. Not even really like a 1050 Ti. And so again, those videos just get me to understand why it's so great. I'm not necessarily trying to bash the thing. I just don't get it. Let's take a look at a more recent game, Days Gone. Now this, and the thing is as well, this benchmark doesn't say the settings that it runs at, but you have to run these games at pretty low settings for it to work on this machine. And this is getting 50 FPS. It doesn't look great. It's a game that I love, but let's be honest, it doesn't look amazing. Far Cry 3 is at this point a 15 or so year old game. Getting about 80 FPS, so that's good. But do you really want to play games that are this old? I mean, you might. I play some games that are really old, but my point is just, you're not going to pay $1,000 just to play Far Cry 3 or just Cause 3, for that matter. Getting about 70 FPS. This looks a bit better, and I'm sure again the colors look really nice on the screen, but I just don't get it, man. My favorite game of all time, Oblivion, the original one. And, you know, I'm sure you could have fun, right? Like playing this on a handheld could be a lot of fun, and I get that. But it's just so much money for something that a $200 PC could do better. So I just don't get it. We'll take a look at one or two more. But I mean, even these games, right? Like it's really easy to run games. Trapang, on the other hand, is quite demanding. It's well optimized, but and it does get about 80 FPS on what I assume would be the lowest setting. Again, it's not going to look amazing, but it's not a bad result. Horizon Zero Dawn, that might be interesting. Looking at around 50 FPS at very low graphics. It looks very pixelated. So, yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those things. I don't quite get it. If you do have a Steam Deck, could you let me know in the comments why you love it so much? And again, I'm not trying to bash, but to make my point, to solidify my point, let me show you what you could get instead. So you could get a PC, and I kind of chose a pre-built from Amazon to show you that even with the bad value options, because these pre-builts are really bad values, especially right now with the RAM issues, even so, you could still get something a lot better value. And I know this isn't a handheld, but it's just about the computing power. Right? I just want to make a point. The Steam Deck, while it does have, you know, unified memory and very fast memory, I think it might be 6,000 megatransfers as well for the Steam Deck. So it's probably quite similar to this. But I mean, this is a Ryzen 5 9600X, so it's a current gen Ryzen 5. It is a 6-core, but it's incredibly fast for gaming. It has an RTX 5060. It is the 8 GB one, but again, versus what is essentially a 1050 Ti, it's no contest. I know it's unfair to sort of do this, but it's just about the money. And then 16 gigs of DDR5, 6,000 megatransfers. Again, maybe that's like the one place where it's about equal. Same with the 4th gen PCI NVMe M.2 drive here, the 1 terabyte drive. This does come with a 650 watt 80 plus gold power supply. I'm not sure what brand, but you know, it does say it's gold rated. Comes with Windows installed. So, I mean, you could argue that this is a Windows PC that's a SteamOS Linux-based machine. And I get the appeal for gaming, but I mean, let's be honest, you'd rather install, you know, a Linux operating system like SteamOS on your own thing than be forced into it. Although I'm sure you could get Windows running on a Steam Deck. But the point is just, for like $30 less, this is just so much more power. Like it's not even in the same realm. And I know this isn't a handheld, and I know, to be fair, you do need to add onto this because you don't have a screen, you don't have a keyboard and a mouse, a mousepad, speakers, right? Or your cables. But I mean, even if you did add those on, so this is $1,150. A good HDMI cable is like $10. You know, that's going to be fine, especially for the screen like this. So this is not the best screen in the world. This is just kind of to make a comparison, right? So you could go with something like this that is, you know, relatively big for gaming, 24 inches. That's probably about average. It's 180 hertz, so it's very fast refresh rate. I'm not sure what the refresh rate on the Steam Deck is, but it doesn't really matter when you're getting 40 FPS, right? This does use DisplayPort or HDMI, and you know, it's not going to be the best panel in the world. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Is this is going to have, maybe, if you'll, I don't know what it is, but it might be like an IPS panel or probably a VA panel, and you know, it's not going to look amazing color wise. It's not going to have the best contrast in the world, although it might have good contrast, to be fair. But it's going to have good response times. It's going to have high refresh rates, and you're going to get high FPS, and this is just going to be a much smoother gameplay. So that's why I'm saying, obviously OLED is nice. It looks amazing. It's a lot nicer than this sort of panel. But for gaming, for me, I would take speed over image quality for the kinds of games that I play. Now, I understand not everyone thinks that way, and that's 100% fine. But this is just to show you, for like $90, you could get a decent panel. Keyboard and mouse, it's going to be about $50 for a good keyboard and mouse. I say good, it's like middle of the road, but something that isn't trash, essentially. But this is going to be more than fine for gaming. In my opinion, beats having, a touchscreen and, what do you call those? Thumbsticks. It beats that by a lot, in my opinion, because that's just my preference. But you could say the value is about equal there. Speakers, you could buy decent speakers for like $30. Nothing amazing, but will do the job. Mousepad is going to be like $10 for a decent one. And you can customize this to whatever you like. So, I mean, yes, this does add money. So it's like $10, it's $100 there, it's $150, $180. Let's say $200 total. So it takes the price to 1,000. Like, let's say like 1,300 or something like that, right? At the most, $1,300 versus, for a full setup, versus 1,200 essentially for the Steam Deck. Now, this is a stupid comparison because it is portable versus a solid system, but again, the point isn't which one has the better form factor. It's not to do with that. This is just a power sort of thing. Now, I do understand that a part of the value comes from the form factor of having something like a Steam Deck, so you should compare it to something like an Ally, right? And I understand that, but this video is just computing power, because I know I'm going to get comments about that, and I understand that completely. But this is my perspective thing. And I'm not saying I wouldn't like to have a Steam Deck, essentially. I'm just saying I don't know how much I would use it, because the kind of games that I want to play, it's not going to be powerful enough. So let's take a look at how this PC will perform. And this is now running at full HD, right? At high settings, DLAA, something like Black Myth Wukong, something that I'm sure the Steam Deck couldn't run very well. We are getting about 80 FPS there. Assassin's Creed Shadows, recent games, demanding games. DLSS, 1080p, very high settings, looking at about 58 to 60 FPS there. Alan Wake 2, difficult to run, ray tracing, all of that kind of stuff is usable in this. This is running at 1080p, high settings DLAA, and we're looking at, around 45 to 50. We'll take a look at something like The Last of Us 2. So essentially, AAA games, much more demanding, right? 90 FPS, 1080p, high settings, TAA enabled, runs really well. Silent Hill 2 Remake, very difficult to run. 60 FPS, 1080p, high settings, very good there. Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, this kind of game will be optimized for the Steam Deck, so I'm sure it could handle it quite well. But it's not going to look like this. 1080p quality presets with TAA, getting around 95 FPS. Horizon Forbidden West, the newer Horizon, very high settings, 1080p, getting around 85 FPS. So this kind of just goes to show that, from a computing perspective, the Steam Deck doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, I do understand that a lot of people don't get the Steam Deck for its computing power. They get it because they like the form factor, they like the screen, they like the backlog of games that they want to play on their device. And I understand that it's also like for a lot of people, it's a commute thing. You play a game at home, it saves the save data to your personal Steam's cloud or whatever, and you can pick up your device, play on the train or on the plane or in the backseat of a car, and you can make some progress in your games. I understand that 100%, and that kind of thing makes sense. I'm not someone that commutes or travels, so to me, having a stationary PC makes more sense. So I think it just comes down to perspective, but that's all this is. It's just my perspective, and I wanted to share it with you. I know I'm going to get backlash on this, but personally, the Steam Deck just doesn't make sense to me. So if you didn't unsubscribe, I probably lost a few here. But if you didn't, I will see you in the next one. Cheers.